You may know that I developed a philosophy that I coined the term Naturosophy for to help demonstrate the idea that nature can be seen as good by equating the word natural with good, with right, with healthy, with truth and reality alike. And I have a 10-hour dedicated presentation to it. I have several books written about it in several different perspectives, one giving an example in the case of government and anarchy, another in an application called Radical Honesty, and another as a guidebook so you can learn for yourself purely through questions. And then, of course, the original text, Sapientia Naturae, which means the wisdom of nature. And this video is simply going to be among them. It's going to be illustrations. Illustrations can be helpful when it comes to simplifying down concepts, so that's what I intend to do here. What we're going to do is start with very, very simple slides, and the first two slides are just going to be explanatory, and then the rest of the slides are going to go right into these very simple graphs that you can make for yourself with a mere pen and paper. Okay, slide 1, okay, of Naturosophy Illustrated. You need to know how to live with nature. That is what makes it good or natural. And if you don't, that's bad or unnatural. If you do not know how to live with nature, then you are not understanding your place within the world. You have a hard time aligning or harmonizing with the natural universe. So that is unnatural to your condition, being as you are part of the universe, and you must find your place within it. The key word here is know. Knowledge is the key here, and we're going to come back to this and conclude with all these slides at the very end of this presentation. There's two questions you have to keep in mind here. Do you seek harmony, and do you cross the line? Okay, when I say do you seek harmony, I say what I just said before. Are you working with what you are given by your nature? Are you working with the universe that was here before you? And do you cross the line, meaning are you going to go too far past your boundaries per se and claiming you are something that you are not? And claiming something is true that is not? Because that is against reality. That is against nature or truth if you want to correlate and connect all these words together. Okay, so now let's get right into the illustrations. This is the first illustration, and I want you to first start with the circle and the box. And you can write this down on a pen and paper if you'd like. The circle, big, represents nature, this infinite whole. Okay, it's been there before you. Of course, if you look up the word nature and natural, you're going to get something along the lines of constitution. Okay, and that of which has always existed, the inherent quality or character. And of course, there's several different definitions for nature depending on what you're looking at. There's a nature of a thing, and then there's the nature of a universe as a whole. But if we are looking at that nature, which is the all of all, it's this huge circle which is represented here in this illustration. Now, you have a box next to this. This box stands for you. It stands for any human being on this earth, which we just call man to say it's short, okay? And man creates things. Man will always create things. So there's man and the man-made. This is correlated one and the same as a box, okay? Man can choose what to do with his own life. This is the ability that man has, which gives him great power, and with it, the need for responsibility to know what to do with his own life, with his own choices. Again, when I say his, I mean also her. It's just another way of saying it. So let's continue then. If we have the circle and the square, nature and man, or nature and the man-made, how do they relate? How do they have relations with one another? So if we are dependent on the man-made, okay, what happens? You can see the arrow of the square going to the circle. Man-made takes the place of nature. Man takes the place of nature. And what happens is you create illusion because it's no longer truth. If man takes the place of what is truth or reality, then they create illusion. That's what this represents. It creates man-made authority, aka denaturing, and this is why man can never create anything new. They can only take from what already exists. This is why when in this process of denaturing or taking over nature, assuming its reigns, you are basically stealing from or disregarding or in the lack of nature, okay? Another way of saying this is just straight up ignorance. Okay, because again, it's not knowledge. If you seek to harmonize with nature as part of it, you're not seeking to replace it. Life is not dependent on you nor your creations. You harmonize with nature, but if instead you take the place of nature, you are creating an illusion. You're stealing from nature its authority in its long reign way before you've ever existed. So you're assuming something of nature or reality or yourself that isn't yourself or nature or reality. It's illusion by definition. Even the word illustrated here. These are diagrams to represent something bigger. The diagrams itself, this is a man-made creation, my books, my philosophy, a man-made creation to represent something much greater. It by definition is an illusion since it's only taking parts of nature, but it cannot represent nature as a whole. Meaning, I can't say that what I wrote or these diagrams here consist of all of nature. Like, this diagram is nature. It isn't. This creation, you must be dependent on it. You can't. There's many different creations. There's many different diagrams. There's many different perspectives. And it's not limited to just this one. For example, the Taoist perspective of nature. Very similar to this one, but it's not put the same exact way. It's the same or similar truths at the end of the day through a different perspective. And that's why illusions can be so illusory, because it gives you a different perspective on something that can actually keep you away from the truth if you hold on to that perspective as truth and don't seek to look beyond the perspective, see what more could be found. There's a lot to be said among those lines, which is why I have works that go into detail concerning that. But let's move on here so we can get a bigger picture, and then we'll wrap everything up, because this is really as simple as it is. If instead man does not take the place of nature, but says, I'm within nature, because you are, then you would harmonize about it. You see your place within it, and anything you create as it is taking some part of nature, you recognize it's part of nature, but you separate the fact that it isn't nature. You recognize that. The word recognize, very important, because to recognize, to rethink, to be able to see and understand that what you create in you are not nature, are not God. This is important because although it might sound redundant to some people, a lot of people treat government figures in our world as if they are gods. They treat it like a religion. And so we want to not see that. We want to see the truth. Truth is the only religion. Nature is the only government, the only truth, morality, whatever. However you want to picture nature, if it's something that is universal and timeless, that is nature. Okay, something that you always have to live with no matter what. So working with or for nature, this is recognizing natural authority, because you recognize that your authority is in nature, not in man or his creation. And therefore you are willing to work with what nature provided to you, and you are going to naturalize, meaning to make natural, to allow essentially nature to have its reigns where it is supposed to, recognizing your place within it. And so this gives to and supports the natural, gives to and supports nature. So the final slide here for this presentation is then to understand existence, usage, and occurrence. In Naturosophy, I have a common phrase that says just because something is natural to occur does not mean it's natural to exist, and just because something is natural to exist does not mean it's natural to use. It can sound confusing, but this can also really clarify. If we ignore what is natural to exist, we will make exist whatever we want to exist. And again, is your perception truth? Is what you want truth? Your desires is not necessarily what the truth is. Okay, you are separate from the truth. Although you're living within it, you have the choice to work with it or not. So if we just say we want to reverse everything that life inherently has or consists of, then we are basically taking the place of nature or God and saying that we can make whatever we want to make, and there's no consequences to that. Now, maybe there's some consequences that we'll learn from, but we don't recognize nature's authority to ever realize there was an underlying foundation or blueprint that ever brought you to where you are now, or that you need or demands respect. And so if we just replace the word existence with usage or occurrence, it works the same way. If we ignore what's natural to use, we will make use whatever we want to use. If we ignore what's natural to occur, we will make occur whatever we want to occur. But again, just because you want something to be true does not make it true. Truth does not care about your feelings. Truth is authority, and you have no choice but to obey that authority. Sorry to tell you, you can't play God. Government, on the other hand, says if you don't follow us, this is man-made government, of course, if you don't follow us, you will be punished. You will have this done to you. It's all arbitrary. It's all based on opinion. That's because it's man taking the place of nature. It is man-made authority. Okay, so look at this chart as a whole and just study it for a moment. Okay? If you seek harmony, you're going to be part of it. You're going to give to and support the natural. You're going to recognize your part within it. And if you cross the line, you'd say, oh, shoot, we shouldn't have done this. This is too far. This is recognizing that we are creating illusions for ourselves. We're no longer in truth or reality. We don't recognize what's real anymore. That is where you have man-made authority or a man's creation taking over the reins of nature. And it cannot last because it's a square. A square cannot fulfill the shape of a circle. It's incomplete. It's always ever going to be incomplete, and man can only, again, take parts of nature. Man is not timeless or universal. It can't be nature, but he can attempt as much as possible. He can create many different systems and illusion of it. But it still doesn't make his creation or him truthful as natural authority itself, as nature itself. So we cannot ignore nature, and thus we cannot ignore what's natural to exist or use or occur. We need to understand each one of those things. Now, the only thing that you might question here then is, how do we know? How do we know if we are working with or for nature, if we're giving or supporting nature? The key component to this is time. Because knowledge, if it's knowledge, it's helpful, it helps us understand our place, it helps us understand what to do with our nature, and we recognize nature so we are able to harmonize with it. That's our authority. So if our authority is placed there, we seek knowledge from it, and we seek to understand that everything that we create has potential consequences. And if we learn from those consequences over time, which is how they're portrayed to us, then we know what to do and not do. And it's just that simple. Most people do this within their everyday life. I'm simply bringing it together into a philosophy, into a diagram, and helping to emphasize the fact that you cannot lose touch with nature or reality. Okay, and this happens many times within people's lives. Maybe they get a disease, and it's sort of a reminder of nature's authority, saying there's something wrong here you ignored, or you did something wrong that led to this consequence. And you need to know what was wrong. You need to know what was unnatural, what was not supposed to happen. People will claim natural disasters. There's no such thing. They're hazards. They don't need to be disasters. There are scenarios in nature. You're going to blame nature for something that, again, you can't really reverse. Man should focus on his creation, himself, and what he creates, because it's the only thing he has choice over. He doesn't have choice over nature and what nature does. When he tries to change nature, nature will always come back and backfire because he's taking the place of something he's not supposed to do. He's trying to overrule an authority higher than himself, which he will never be able to overrule. And even if he can get the whole world to believe in his authority, as in the case of government, it doesn't make it true. Right? Again, nature is outside of humanity. Humanity is within nature. So This is the goal here, and it's sort of paradoxical in nature, which is why I use the yin-yang symbol as well. And again, I refer to Taoism because it also describes it really, really well, although it can also be really also misunderstood. And that's simply because I think there's a lack of humans understanding the paradox within the universe, or understanding their place and what to do within the universe, especially in a world of fast-paced mechanics where everybody's expected or has attachments to certain things. So thank you very much for watching. I hope these charts sum up everything about Naturosophy. I think this is the simplest way you can illustrate it, and I'm sure there's even more simple ways, but this summarizes everything man does and everything he creates, and even just his mere existence and his relationship to nature and what he needs to do over time. Thank you.